Are Donald Trump and his administration really helping the housing sector economy in the United States? We are facing a major economic turbulence. Never before has the entire world faced such economic turmoil as we are seeing today, with tariffs, wars, religion, and many other factors. But Donald Trump is a businessman, and his focus this second presidency on money, on putting the United States first again as a great economic power. Is everything he has been doing over these past 4 months really having an effect? The issue of tariffs, the fight with the Fed, the matter of employment, are all these issues really making us much more secure when it comes to housing? Or are we really in the middle of a turbulence that's not leading us anywhere, that we're simply adrift, and all the issues surrounding the housing sector are attacking housing, but housing itself doesn't have its own framework. It doesn't have its own path that it's following to truly become a pillar of the economy, and all those people who haven't been able to buy can actually buy their homes. Addressing this major affordability crisis we're facing right now, we're going to be analyzing this in today's podcast. We're going to be talking about what effect all these policies have and how 2025, what's left of 2025, and 2026 could either improve or worsen what we're seeing in the housing sector. Always with us by your side, a team of real estate agents who work hand in hand with our clients, providing the best analysis you'll find in the market and bringing you that information so you can make the best decisions with accurate, real, and transparent information. As always, I'm Gabriel Perozzo, and I'm here with my friend, partner, and also Chief of Operations for the entire real estate conglomerate, Jenny MOLINA. Jenny, how do you see the situation? Is Donald Trump bringing us closer, or is he pushing us away?
Well, I'll throw the question back to you, because look, the interest rates, we always say, and it's a really important point for housing affordability. And honestly, a large portion of buyers in the market right now are holding back. I mean, they say, okay, I want to wait until interest rates go down. This week we saw how interest rates dropped by 0.12 in a single day because of a jobs report. But in the end, Donald Trump moves, raises, lowers, stirs up the economy, and ends up fighting with the Fed so that they lower the benchmark interest rates. My question is, if he really had any interest in lowering interest rates, shouldn't he avoid affecting the economy so much or let things calm down so that rates could drop?
Look, that's the big question for the Fed. The Fed says, you blame me, but you're the one picking a fight. The Fed says, you move the economy, you change tariffs, you threaten all our trading partners, you attack Wall Street, you attack the major banks, you attack the universities. There are attacks on many sectors that could have good intentions, or they could have bad intentions. I mean, these aren't necessarily bad attacks. They could be attempts to find a balance. I'm a firm believer that when it comes to the trade war, there are a lot of attacks that are necessary. I mean, with China, we as American citizens have to put our foot down and say, we need you to respect patents. We need you not to engage in dumping, for example, which is when you subsidize your producers so they can sell much cheaper and destroy other economies. You have to put a stop to labor abuses within your country because it's really easy, Jenny. China competes with a workforce that often earns nothing more than 2 bowls of rice a day, while the United States has an entire labor policy that you have to respect so that workers earn a decent wage, have benefits, and so on. And most countries in the industrialized world have to comply with a lot of agreements. China doesn't care about harming the environment. China doesn't care about harming workers. They don't care about anything as long as they can exercise hegemony over the world's commercial axis. So that's an attack that I think is necessary. To go after that, whether it's with tariffs through diplomatic channels or whatever comes. But all these conflicts end up with the Fed, as such, being the target of Donald Trump. Is the Fed really to blame? We'd have to analyze it much more deeply.
Yeah, I mean, interest rates are always a pretty confusing topic because, look, there's the jobs report, the inflation rate, the treasury bonds. I mean, there are so many factors that in the end you lose. You lose the information as a consumer. You lose the information, and when they go up, you say, okay, but why did they go up if in flat? Sorry, if inflation went down, why did they go up? I mean, it's really something where you just go, right. And reading the news, you also come across headlines where Trump is going to fire Powell, where there are problems between them, but in the end you look it up and he appointed him in his first term. So why are they fighting so much? Why does he want to get rid of him? If he was the one who appointed him, you'd think he'd somehow agree with his work, with what he's done.
Jenny, the vision of a president, and especially a president of the United States who ends up being the most important person in the world, has to wear many hats. Trump has a political hat that he's managed very well in his own style, but he's managed it very well. And that political hat is, I hit first, then I negotiate. I hit first, then I negotiate. He's always done it that way in politics. I mean, maybe today he hits. At one point, Powell was his adversary, then his ally. He hits him today, but tomorrow we might see them sitting side by side. That's been normal. And there's a whole political issue regarding Powell because Powell wasn't actually appointed by Donald Trump. Donald Trump made him chairman of the Federal Reserve, but he was appointed by Obama years earlier because his term is 14 years as a Fed governor, but 4 years as chairman. He was appointed by Barack Obama, a Democratic president. Then Donald Trump made him chairman of the Federal Reserve. Then Biden reappointed him as chairman of the Federal Reserve 4 years later. And now Trump says he's against the economy. Powell has a very simple mandate. The mandate of the Federal Reserve is, I think, one of the most beautiful mandates of any institution in the world. Its mandate is stable prices with maximum employment. As simple as that. What does that mean? It means controlling inflation and making sure everyone has a job.
Of course, this is the Federal Reserve's mandate, but we saw in this week's meeting that out of 12 people, 2 did not agree. And this is the first time that's happened since '83, something like that. So, yeah, that's their job, but it's also showing that there's a slight disagreement that we hadn't seen before, and that something must be happening in the economic data for 2 people when we hadn't seen this in 40 years, to be in disagreement. So, I have a saying about the economy, not about politics. It's that whatever they tell you is happening isn't true, it's actually the opposite. So, yeah, I mean, in the end, as a consumer, you really don't know. You don't know if they're actually moving all the numbers around so that things work out in a way that's convenient for a political party. So, my point is, I don't want to talk about politics, but it really does affect all of us economically. Is it going to be solved? I mean, is there going to come a time when we'll reach stability? Are we close to stability? That's what we all want.
Jenny, when Powell makes his statements, and let's put it in the most everyday language possible, like you said, for us, the regular people. Us, the regular people. When Powell speaks, he's basically talking about choosing between protecting the price of eggs or protecting the price of houses. What should I do? Do I protect the eggs or do I protect the house? Their mandate is to prefer protecting the price of eggs, the price of milk, the price of pasta. Why? Because that affects a much larger number of people. And Powell, in his last press conference, was very, very clear, saying, we do not intervene in the housing sector. We don't build houses. We don't set mortgage rates. We don't do any of that. We control prices and employment. In other words, we manage the economy to have, as I said, stable prices with maximum employment. So there is a political problem on the part of the Trump administration. On the Fed side, there is no political problem. On the Fed side, there is simply following a mandate. I'm not someone who thinks the Fed is doing a bad job. Why? because they are sticking exactly to what the rules say. We also know that 2 of them dissented. Who are these 2 dissenters? One has dissented several times because he is much more pro-economy. What does that mean? We have a mandate, but in addition to that mandate, we also have a responsibility to the country's economy. And if we can speed it up, let's speed it up. I mean, let's not waste time holding back the economy just to keep inflation in check. Let's play at keeping inflation steady. I gave you an example the other day. This is like driving a car and having both hands on the wheel. One hand is employment, the other is inflation. Who steps on the gas, raising and lowering the benchmark rates? When do you step on the gas? When you have both hands firmly on the wheel. What happens? Right now, both hands aren't firmly on the wheel because employment is shaky and inflation is shaky too. So Trump says speed up, and the Fed says no, because we don't have control. And if we go off to one side, so in the end, that car needs to be balanced. It's not like you should move either, because you can't have the car unbalanced with the steering wheel but not moving. So you're not doing anything. You're just acting like an idiot. And the second person who voted against in this last vote is one of Donald Trump's possible candidates to chair the Federal Reserve. Because remember that the next chair of the Federal Reserve will come from among the governors, from the 7 governors. So what could happen? That one of them has to be aligned with Donald Trump in order to be appointed.
Politics.
Because Donald Trump can only appoint one governor, which he'll do next year. That governor can come in and become the chair, or they have to choose from one of those already inside. So it's politics, Jenny, but it's really 2 sides of the same coin. The economy goes with politics, and politics goes with the economy.
Of course.
Is it going to be resolved? Yes, of course it's going to be resolved. By September, there should already be a rate cut. Let's see what happens. Let's see how much the economy speeds up. August 1st was the deadline, which has already passed, for tariffs to be imposed on all countries. Donald Trump has already imposed tariffs on all countries, and they're coming into effect between August 1st and 7th. We have to see how all of this is going to end. Same with China. There's a framework agreement, but not a final agreement. With the European Union, it's not completely finalized either, and with Brazil, it's not finalized. In other words, the economy is going to keep moving. What I do think is important is that the United States has been put first in all the negotiations. I don't know of a single tariff negotiation where the United States hasn't been put first. They're increasing tariff revenue by impressive numbers. It doesn't have the effect that Donald Trump wants, which is to generate jobs and for those jobs to have an impact on the housing sector. But what we are clear about, Jenny, is that there is a housing inventory deficit, and this housing inventory deficit could be a factor that harms the US housing market. Because if things speed up without enough housing, we could end up with another round of price inflation.
Of course, for those who have just heard Gabriel's comment in Sunday's podcast, he showed a graph that talks about the ratio between homes available for sale and the population. That ratio, even though we know and people say, if you go into the podcasts, it's there, So, explain it, Gabby, since you have it there on your computer.
Yes, this graph is pretty easy to understand because what it shows us is how many homes are for sale, divided by the total population of the United States. When we add up all those homes and divide by the population, the median range from 1982 to 2025, has been 0.91%. This percentage of homes relative to the population is currently at 0.58. Why? Because 1,470,000 homes for sale are being divided, plus 502,000 new homes that are either under construction or completed. When you divide that by the 341 million homes, this comes from census sources and from the Housing Office and the National Association of Realtors, it gives us a factor of 0.58. In other words, there is little inventory for sale compared to the size of the population we have right now. And this deficit hasn't been closed because not enough homes are being built. In some areas, homes have been built, in others not, but we have a housing deficit that's estimated at around 4 million homes.
Of course, this This factor tells us that even if you see headlines saying 40% more inventory, yes, folks, I have 40% more inventory compared to last year, which isn't selling because interest rates are high and there are affordability issues. When rates go down, this factor is the one that will carry the weight and will speed up the real estate market.
Yes, the situation is tough, but things are looking really good for 2026. A booming economy for 2026. Sufficient inventory. Builders with a well established pipeline. I think that over the past 5 years, builders have had time to sit down and analyze the markets thoroughly. Lenner, D.R. Horton, Pulte, all of them. The big players know it, the small ones know it too, and so do the rental markets. Everyone is kind of waiting, Jenny, because we've just come out of 5 very turbulent years, and people are hoping for things to get back to normal. People are waiting for rates of 5.5%, which are historically good. People are waiting for us to have a fact, a commercial sector, an industrial construction sector with a well-established pipeline, with clear tariffs that will tell us what the prices are, even with an America First policy, which will also help a lot because builders have also started looking to US forests for lumber and to US steel for screws. In other words, they're now very focused on making sure the economy is driven internally. There's no need to go to China, no need to go to India to look for raw materials. We're going to do it here, and by doing it here, we're going to help the entire industrial sector. So, Jenny, it's a matter that if everything continues as it is, I think the Fed isn't making a mistake. We have to hold on a bit because we have too much strength, and that endurance is what's going to keep us from getting tired during the race. It's like if you go out to run a marathon and put all your effort into just the first 10 kilometers. You're going to run out of gas for the remaining 32 kilometers. The Fed is acting as that catalyst. It's being that barrier that keeps us from running wild until we have a much more stable economy, better housing inventories, builders who understand the situation, and personal finances that allow many more people to qualify for mortgages at 5.5% or 5%.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And we're talking about interest rates. And I also want to point out that the interest rate doesn't just depend on the Fed or on Trump. No, no, no. If you want to buy a property, the interest rate also depends on you. The interest rate depends on your financial profile. I've said it many times, you have to be prepared. If you're one of those people waiting to buy a property until interest rates go down, let me tell you that you should use this waiting time to pay off your debts and improve your credit score. Your credit score directly affects the interest rate you'll pay. So, if you decide to wait, that's fine, that's great, go ahead and wait. But work on yourself so that when interest rates drop, you can take advantage of those lower rates and, on top of that, get an even bigger discount because you have a strong financial profile. So, that was the note I wanted to share with you. If you have any questions, just call us using the link below. It goes straight to our WhatsApp. We'll answer. We have the best team in Florida to guide you, to tell you exactly how far you need to go. I've always said it. The only way for you to really prepare yourself and know where you need to get to is to contact us, and we'll give you the information.
That's right, Jenny. I encourage everyone watching us to always challenge your real estate agents. Ask them macroeconomic questions like this, because that's what's going to tell you. If they don't understand how interest rates work, if they don't understand what's happening at the national level in the United States, it's going to be hard for them to really grasp what's going on in your neighborhood beyond just knowing where the school is, where to get gas, and how much the neighbor sold their house for. They need to be well-rounded real estate agents who understand what's happening at every level because that's their profession, that's their craft. That's why they need to study every single day. You wouldn't put your body in the hands of a doctor who doesn't study every day. So don't put your assets in the hands of a realtor who isn't studying every day. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. That way you show the platform its quality content, and it should be shared. Share it if you know someone who might be interested, and of course, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We have 4 podcasts a week with the best of what's happening in real estate in the United States, in Florida, and of course, financial podcasts. Thank you so much once again. Where to Live, in Miami podcast, a production of Invest in Miami Real Estate. Total transparency.
How long did it last? Damn, I felt